Hello everyone, and welcome back to Secrets Behind the Stars. It's such a joy to have you with us again, because today we're opening the door to a behind-the-scenes revelation that fans of Turkish dramas have whispered about for ages but never quite pieced together. If you adore those series that sweep us into worlds of passion, jealousy, redemption, and unexpected laughter, you're in exactly the right place. Because tonight, we are diving into the real story behind a casting decision that ignited a phenomenon and left millions believing in fairy tales again. We're talking about why Baktaş himself pushed, insisted, and stood firm that his partner for that whirlwind called turkishseries must be none other than the luminous Yagmur Yüksel. Buckle up, because once you hear the full story, the way their eyes met on screen will never look the same again. Before we plunge into the secret notes, the whispered testimonies, and the instincts that shaped a cultural wave, a quick reminder: if you haven't yet joined our family here at Secrets Behind the Stars, hit subscribe and tap that bell so you never miss the next confession, the next twist, or the next heart-stopping revelation from the world of Turkish showbiz. Your support keeps these stories alive, and we love having you here. Now, let's talk turkishseries. That sparkling, tempestuous, unforgettable gem, known to many as Dreamy Bird, wasn't just another television show. It stormed into living rooms and latched onto our hearts with unbridled romance, fizzy comedy, and moments that felt like lightning in a bottle. At the pulsing center of this storm, two figures stood like twin flames, each making the other burn brighter. Baris Baktaş stepped in as the charismatic, disarming, irreverently charming candy bit, while Yagmur Yüksel poured life into the vivacious, stubborn, gorgeously hopeful sane main. From the very first scenes, there was a hush that went across fandom screens everywhere, because something primal, electric, and utterly undeniable was happening between them. That glint of mischief, that shared breath before a line, that weight of a gaze that says far more than dialogue ever could. Viewers didn't just watch it, they felt it. But the magic you saw wasn't a lucky accident. It wasn't a trick of the edit bay or just clever direction. The pairing, we've learned, was a deliberate, strategic, instinct-fueled decision. What led Baris to insist, quietly at first, and then firmly, that his partner had to be Yagmur? The answer is layered, and it starts long before the casting director made a single phone call. According to sources close to the development phase, even in the earliest drafts, when character descriptions existed only as ink and ideas, Baris read the pages and saw sane main with frightening clarity. He didn't just imagine a heroine, he saw a specific presence. He saw a smile that could disarm, a stubbornness that would dissolve into laughter, a softness wrapped around a spine of steel. The more he sat with the script, the more that presence looked, sounded, and moved like Yagmur Yüksel. He knew the role demanded not just a good actress, but someone with a very particular color of light, someone who could take the airiest romantic beat and tie it to a thudding heartbeat of truth. Admiration for talent was the first pillar. Privately and then publicly, Baris had spoken about Yagmur's raw, clean emotionality, that ability to shred the line between character and person and connect to viewers like a hand on the shoulder. He saw in her an effortless spontaneity, a naturalness that made comedy glisten and heartbreak sting. His own acting style leans intense, layered, sometimes quiet until it erupts. What he craved was a co-lead who could answer intensity with light, who could catch the ball and sling it back with a grin, who could let Candy Bit's walls crumble without a single melodramatic gesture. For sane main to feel alive, that Quicksilver energy had to be real, and Yagmur's presence promised exactly that. But this wasn't only about talent on paper. There was the question of energy, that invisible current that audiences sense before they can explain it. Baris knew they had crossed paths, nodding at the same events, blending into the same city's hum, even if they hadn't yet stood shoulder to shoulder on the same set. He felt, through that mysterious actor's intuition, that if they were ever placed opposite one another, the air between them would become charged. You can't manufacture that. You can only recognize it when it's there and then build a world where it can explode safely. He gambled, with quiet certainty, that with Yagmur, the spark would be effortless. Visual presence mattered too. Let's be honest, turkishseries asked audiences to fall for an unapologetically romantic illusion. Sane main needed to radiate innocence without naivete, charm without calculation, stubbornness that made you laugh instead of roll your eyes. Yagmur's bright, unself-conscious smile, the light step, the musicality of her voice, these weren't superficial details to Baris, they were tools. He believed that when Saint teased Candy Bit, her teasing had to feel like oxygen in his lungs and mischief at the corner of his mouth. He felt that her presence would create a playground where even silence would flirt. Anecdotes drifted out later. Even before casting had officially begun, he'd mentioned her name in conversations, the way someone mentions a destination long before the tickets are bought. It wasn't a fleeting crush or a late-stage revelation. It was the kind of steady conviction that lives in a performer's gut. And when the time came to test that conviction under the harsh lights of an audition room, the first read between them was less a test than a confirmation. The air shifted. The rhythm clicked. Lines that felt innocently funny on the page suddenly popped, and dramatic beats throbbed with weight. People present still talk about it with the hush of witnesses at a magic trick they can't explain. What followed on set was a dance. You could see it in the outtakes and hear it between the lines of their interviews. They supported each other's risks. On those grueling days that seemed stitched together with coffee and repetition, they made space for each other's best impulses. When a scene demanded a new tone mid-take, they pivoted together, like partners who already knew where the other foot would land. In comedy, timing is tenderness. In romance, silence is confession. Between Candy Bit and Saint, the timing felt tender, and the silence felt full. It's vital to remember the genre's demands. Turkishseries, with its glittery comic aura and sudden swells of emotion, needed leads who could swing from banter to yearning without a seam showing. Baris and Yagmur built that seam-free fabric. Watch their jealousies simmer, watch their reunions melt. Feel how a throwaway joke drifts into vulnerability and then snaps back into a smirk. Their shared craft turned clichés into oxygen. The show asked to be believed, and they gave us permission to believe it. As episodes rolled out, the audience became the most precise barometer. Fan accounts bloomed overnight. Edits of glances and half-smiles flooded feeds. Threads broke down the angle of a shoulder, the tilt of a chin, the moment a breath was held for just a second too long. People weren't merely watching a couple perform, they were investing in a promise that something real could be born inside fiction. And that's the secret spell of television when it thrives, authenticity inside an illusion. Baris's original conviction was vindicated by every gasp in living rooms far from the set. Let's talk about what Yagmur brought, because her contribution wasn't just about fitting a mold Baris envisioned, it was about shattering it with life. She let Saint be messy and glorious, tender and brave. She gave naivete a knowing wink and heartbreak a quiet dignity. When Candy Bit's intensity surged, she met it with a kind of luminous steadiness, the sort that turns a showdown into a confession. That delicate blend, fragility woven to resilience, etched Saint into memory. It's how a fictional woman becomes a companion to viewers who carry her for years after the credits roll. And Baris? Visionary is a word tossed around too freely, but here, it fits. He didn't search for a co-lead who would simply keep pace. He looked for someone who would lift the floorboards and let fresh air into the entire story. He recognized that for Turkishseries to vault from charming to culture-shifting, the love at its center had to feel faded and fresh all at once. Casting is destiny dressed as logistics, and he understood that the right partner wouldn't just complement him, she would complete the frequency they needed to broadcast to the world. Imagine an alternate version with another actress as Saint. Perhaps it would have worked, perhaps not. But the simple, ringing truth is that Yagmur's casting didn't just work, it created the exact chemistry the show promised in its DNA. It gave the writers permission to risk bolder arcs, the director's license to hold longer on a gaze, and the audience a reason to lean in closer. There's another layer that few discuss openly: trust. Set life can drain even the brightest spirits. Hours stretch, the same line gets carved a dozen ways. In that grind, trust is the currency that buys excellence. Watch the interviews, the candid moments, the way they spoke about one another's craft. You can hear respect crackle like a hearth. He celebrated her instincts, she celebrated his fearlessness. They built a private language of support that you could feel spilling onto the screen. By the time the season reached its peak, the fandom wasn't just shipping characters, they were defending a feeling. They were convinced, as Baris had been from the start, that this pairing was fate masquerading as a casting call. Accounts sprouted that idolized Candy Bit and Same Main as if they'd leapt out of folklore to flirt with the modern world. Memorabilia, edits, late-night rewatches. These weren't just rituals, they were love letters to a decision that put two artists in a constellation where they could sparkle hardest together. In the end, the reasons are simple and vast all at once. Baris's insistence on Yagmur emerged from deep admiration for her artistry, a bone-deep belief in her naturalness, a vision of Same Main that only she could fulfill, and an unshakable intuition that their chemistry would be the lightning the show needed. It wasn't ego, it was stewardship, of a story, a tone, a promise made to an audience hungry for a love that felt both playful and profound. So here we are, hearts still echoing with lines we could recite in our sleep, remembering kisses that felt like laughter and laughter that felt like confession. Behind that magic, there was an artist who recognized his match and a partner who met him not halfway but all the way, with open hands and ready eyes. Together, they didn't just play lovers. They built a space where love could happen in real time, between takes and within them, in the tiny cracks where authenticity sneaks through performance and leaves fingerprints we can't stop tracing. And that is the story, friends, of Secrets Behind the Stars, the truth that flickered beneath the glitter, the intuition that became a phenomenon, the decision that turned a sweet dream into something unforgettable. Tell us, were you already aware of the whispers surrounding this casting? What moment between Candy Bit and Same Main made you sit forward and believe? Drop your thoughts below, because reading your takes is half the joy of this ride. If this deep dive stirred your memories and your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can keep bringing you the revelations, the goosebumps, and the secret threads that tie our favorite stories together. We'll be right here, waiting to bring you more from the sets, the stars, and the hidden notes that make them sing. Until next time, from all of us at Secrets Behind the Stars, keep your eyes on the spark, because that's where the truth always starts.